Hello and welcome back to Ballarat for your 2023 Vic Open coverage. We are here. I'm joined by Phil Morgan.
And I'm joined by Kyle Herbertson.
As we bring you the lead MA1 card, back 9. "27 holes through, we have our lead card keeping their separation from the rest of the pack, including a very handy 3 down from Markus Villota and a 1 down from Gareth Morgan as we head into the scoreable back 9. Hole 10 sits at 104 metres, playing a bit downhill. You've got 2 main gaps, left or right. Most players opting for the backhand gap down the right-hand side with a punching low hyzer, trying to skip up to this uphill green while avoiding the out-of-bounds long. Markus really showing us how it's done with that shot. Skipping, just skipping out of bounds.
A bit unfortunate to just push that a little bit deep there, but Gareth's taking that similar line. There is also another line which is the wider sort of big turnover through the left-hand gap. Doesn't have as much ceiling to deal with and is a little bit bigger of a gap. But they're all opting to take this left-hand hyzer gap.
Tim executing it well, grounding it a bit early, but manages to get a nice chain of skips up to that basket.
Yeah, that's a fantastic shot. I would just like to shout out my boy Pat Graham, who chained out for ace on this hole on my card.
That's an impressive feat on this hole.
He's a left-hander.
That would make more sense.
Markus going a little high after Tom had gone a little bit low. The wind and the OB just on a slightly mound, a green on a slight mound. It's just a bit of a scary putt to run.
Gareth giving it a good little bid, just not quite getting it up. And now Markus cleaning up for his bogey and the rest tapping in for pars with Tim as the lone birdie here. A nice drop in.
That's a fantastic birdie.
Speaking of a fantastic birdie, we've got hole 11 sitting at 98 metres. It's a par 3 tucked super tight around to the left of this large chunk of trees. Currently only seen 1 birdie so far this weekend with Dan Frost in MPO. We'll see what our card can manage.
Yeah, this hole, the shape, it doesn't really play to the birdie. You can throw almost the perfect looking drive, as we saw Mikey do yesterday on the card, and still be outside the circle. Tim has opted for what a lot of people do, which is just play a big kind of distance shot out into the open, and Gareth's doing the same, and then just give yourself a nice little upshot and walk away with your par. What you don't want to do is miss far right where there's OB on the path, long where there's OB by the water, or you can be in the edge of this tree. Like if you're properly in it, you're probably okay, but if you're in the very edge of it where it hangs down, it can be pretty dangerous.
Markus on quite a bit of hyzer here. This has got to get past, and it manages it.
That could be good.
And checks up before the OB.
That's, again, very similar to Mikey's shot yesterday. Pretty much the perfect position, short of some miracle.
Yeah, you just have to be cautious of the roll into the OB, like we saw Alan get yesterday. It's pretty treacherous. The green kind of slopes away towards that OB a little bit as well. That's a really good out from deep in there.
That was a
Tom.
really creative scramble and pretty effective.
And Markus catches the birdie.
That's a great looking putt from seat 2, and yeah, that's quite an incredible birdie here.
One of the best birdies you can get on the course, to be fair, because no one gets it. That's only the second time it was birdied the whole tournament. Gareth with his comebacker after his upshot. It's just kind of pushed out that right-hand side. We've had a fair few of those from this card. Those little pushes out left and right.
Let's see. Tim's got a bit of an awkward stance here. Just a little bit of a tyre track there to navigate, but corrects perfectly and taps in for his par.
And par's all you kind of need. Gareth will be walking away feeling a bit upset about that. Hole 12, 84 metres, par 3. You've got your straightforward gap through for the straight to hyzer backhand where the drone flew, or a lot of people will be throwing a big forehand like Markus is demonstrating now, out wide just under those branches and skipping back. And he's thrown it just inside the circle. That is a really nice forehand.
Tim here throwing his fly, trying to just push that straight gap, and somehow navigates it to the left-hand side. He'll have a long look there.
And I'd just like to point out this hole did play yesterday as the third easiest hole on the course. This was the first birdie of the day for a lot of people over the whole field, not just MA1.
Gareth pushing something nice and straight through the middle gap there, and again finding circle 1.
Yeah, it's a very, very gettable hole. Only Tom kind of demonstrated the only real danger on this hole, which is getting caught up in those trees. But he's laid up fine.
Tim with a long look.
And he's cashed it, and he was pumped.
That's a very good putt there. Probably after that drive, not a birdie you'd expect to get, but gave it a nice, comfortable run, gave it the height it needed, and that bird finds the centre of the chains.
He's got that nice, flat, spinny putt with the berg that kind of just never really gets above the band, even on those longer putts. Markus with a similar shape, but just was always a little bit low, with the tailwind not helping there as well. And Gareth has cashed that in as well.
Makes the correction on that wind, and again walking away with his birdie. That's a couple of very good birdies from these guys. And no damage done by Tom or Markus, both walking away with their pars.
Yeah.
Hole 13 sits at 98 metres, punching through this tunnel of trees. It's the iconic hole of Ballarat. For these guys, trying to punch something straight up the gap and scuttle up on those dead oak leaves in front of the basket. Basically just anything long and straight is good here.
Tim's throwing his very beaten escape, a straight fairway that's beaten in to be very flippy, but just didn't quite turn it enough off that left-hand side.
Oh my god.
Gareth has also pushed it at that left-hand side and just no turn off it as well. He's in a pretty tricky spot a long way back.
Markus has pulled this one down to the right and just got to kick into that left-hand corridor. Should be able to find a gap through.
Just a little scared off by the ceiling, I think, there from Tom. You definitely don't want to throw it too high.
With a billion acorns.
But you just threw it a little low, and that's a very, very good upshot there from Gareth. Getting into the circle, it looked like.
Yep, and similar from Tim here, just getting a nice hyzer to skip up and under the basket, basically.
Similar kind of shot to that one on Mikey's yesterday from a very similar spot. That's a good little jump putt up from Markus. And here's where Tom got to. He got a long way up to probably just inside the circle, or no, just outside. And that was a good bit.
Gareth here to scramble par after hitting early. Oh, just a little bit too high, hitting that top band.
Oh, I wonder whether the wind, you can see the flag ripping into his face a little bit for Markus, whether that wind gave him a little bit of trouble on that putt.
Possibly just a bit too nose up out of the hand and accentuated by that wind, but one you kind of want to be walking away with, so disappointing there.
Tap-ins for the rest of the card, a couple of pars, a couple of bogeys. Heading on to Hole 14, one of the easier holes on the course as well. 74 metres, par 3, slightly downhill. Pretty narrow gap with those two big pine trees in the middle of the main tunnel. And a little bit of a slope off behind the basket, so you don't really want to go too long on this. Ceiling again, an issue on all of the wooded holes on this course. Just need to keep something off the ceiling, let it slide up on the leaves.
Tom with a great looking shot here, just going to scuttle up into C1, and that's a very good look at birdie. Gareth just a little bit out to that left hand side and collects an early tree.
Just pushed it out that left hand side and wanted it to turn off it again, but just pushed it a little too hard, and here's his step out forehand berg up shot.
Fairly routine
fine.
there.
It's a short enough hole that almost no matter where you get to off the tee, you should have some pretty straightforward upshot.
I can attest to the fact that there are bogeys out there on this hole, but none that will be made by this card, hopefully.
Here's Tim for his birdie after a really nice drive. And he's got it. His putting has started to look really solid after that. Those couple of early pushes, ones that are pushed outside, he just seems to have tied it up, and he's made some great putts recently. And we saw Tom with the birdie as well. And now Markus and Gareth are cleaning up their putts.
Again, on this more scoreable side of the course, these guys starting to see pars more as bogeys, and hole 15 is no exception to that. Playing is the second easiest hole. It's an 87 metre par 3. Its main challenge is the elevated basket there. Otherwise, however you want to get to the basket, there is a route.
Not just the second easiest, but actually the tied easiest hole with the next one, actually.
Yeah, again, this course playing to that backside scoring.
That last stretch from about hole 12 onwards, you definitely want to pick up some strokes on. And these guys, you had Tim a little low and then Tom a little left. And now Gareth's hung one out. Oh, and that is a fantastic drive.
Hit the CT.
He just missed the base.
It's a little fadeaway, no looker. I love it. Markus again throwing that stable M1, just hanging it out to the right and letting it fade back in. Going to leave himself with about 5 or 6 metres.
Yeah, it's not really the kind of look you want to leave yourself on this basket, but you take anything, honestly.
Yeah, I think the wind playing a big part in this elevated basket is that just falls out of the side.
Yeah, it just pushed through those right hand chains again. That's I think the third one for Tim, and now one for Markus in the weak side.
Yeah.
I think that one got a little bit blown out as well. Now Gareth, after watching that, cans his putt. That's all you need to do, folks. That is the birdie for Gareth. And the other three guys all tapping in their pars all at the same time. Hole 16, tied with the previous hole as the easiest hole on the course, 99 metres. Par 3, only real danger is OB water all up the left-hand side. And then you've got this one tree out on the right by itself that you've kind of got to choose whether to go inside or outside of. Most people are just going to throw a hyzer that pushes inside and skips up. Gareth going his destroyer.
Going a bit higher and trying to push outside that tree, I think. And he's going to come up a little bit short.
Tim going that much more inside route. But he's gone a little high for the inside route in general. But it's worked out. You just don't want to land it by the basket because the skip, you'll almost always get a skip on this green.
Tom just caught a little bit of that tree and it got knocked down rather than getting that nice skip, so he'll be about 15 away.
Markus throwing his FX2 a little slightly powered down, I reckon. Just a smooth little hyzer. A little short, but he'll have a look.
Gareth giving that a good run. Was great height, just a little bit right.
Yeah. Very spinny, very flat. Nice putting style, but just a little right.
Yes, Tom.
Tom's just creeps over the basket.
Great putt there from just outside the circle. Markus, ooh, he's just pushed it right again. Maybe an overcorrection from spitting out left on the previous hole. Tim with his comebacker. I reckon he thinks that might have tried to come out. He didn't look super happy about a make, to be honest. But it was in, and it's a birdie.
Yeah, Gareth just catching the nubs on the cage and getting a bit of a rejection there. That's an unfortunate bogey there for Gareth, especially after that drive.
Yeah. And Marcus's sticks looked a little funky out one side, but it stuck.
Hole 17 here, 103 metre par 3. It's quite a tough line. There's a flex forehand down this left-hand side or a low pushing backhand down the right side of the fairway. It's definitely a gettable hole. How would I know that, Phil?
I wonder. This hole was playing as the third hardest hole of the field yesterday, but not for everyone.
Why was that?
Well, somebody aced this hole.
That would be my co-commentator Phil Morgan somehow ringing this hole up with a flex forehand Falcor, and we're going to see if Markus can emulate a bit of that form as he also ups to the forehand.
Gone for the similar line, but he flexed his a little more than I did, and just kind of drifted out to the right a little, the left, a little far. Gareth throwing that much higher difficulty turnover with that low branch on the left. It was a really nice looking shot. The other thing to bear in mind on this hole is there is OB pretty tight along of the basket. So running the putt from this side of the basket can be pretty daunting, as we saw Michael Gleese go OB with his putt yesterday.
Tim here looking for a nice spinny approach and just hits the cage.
That was a great bit, and that wasn't going OB.
That was really pushing that berg to its limits there. That was a great looking shot.
Yeah.
And Gareth similarly finding the cage there.
That was a trickier line though from Gareth. He had a tree to kind of putt around, and that was a great bit. Both him and Tim. They're all going to tap out and walk away from this hole, which is all you really. Ideally, you just want to par on this hole. So they've walked away with it, and they are walking all the way to the picturesque hole 18. The most obvious thing about this hole is the water. It's all on the right. It's all in your head. It's a par 4, 184. You just want to push a big hyzer into the open and then a nice chippy up shot. There is OB long of the basket to be aware of, but I don't think anyone on this card is going for the real aggressive line across the water to the second gap where the basket is. You have some people going for the eagle, but most people are just doing what Tim's doing, the big high hyzer, just pushing it out into this open space.
And that's pretty much exactly where you want to be. If you can push straight and far through that gap, you can give yourself another hyzer towards the basket. If you're a bit closer where Tom is there, he's going to have to throw a bit straighter of an upshot.
Or a forehand or a turnover. Yeah, you've got a lot of options once you're in the open.
Yeah, absolutely.
But just important to be aware that the green does slope away towards that OB. So
all of these guys managing to find that gap for the most part, and all going to be in a pretty similar position here as Gareth opts for the forehand approach.
The water does get in your head a little bit, but for most of the guys at this level, this is a pretty routine. Big hyzer, easy upshot. It's just about how you deal with what's in your head. Gareth got his nicely into the circle, and here's Marcus's chippy upshot forehand with his A3.
That was a great looking shot, almost gave it a soft bid there.
Yeah, and he'll check up nicely inside the circle. Tom now looking for the Berg flick. Just nice and straight.
Oh, the old Berg.
Little fade. And he's pushed it A little short of the circle, maybe?
I think it's a bit deceptive with this false front. I think
down.
he'll have a
Slow
fairly
down.
straightforward shot.
Slow down.
As Tim pushes his past and celebrates that it's still in bounds.
Yeah, it can get away from you very quickly if you throw on the backhand. The forehand has the advantage that it gets to ground, but the backhand can just kind of glide with the slope. He's just leaks that putt a little bit and left himself with still a little bit to work with. And just push through, and I think that's his fifth putt today. That's just kind of pushed through the chains a little bit.
Yeah, definitely a couple still out there for Tim, but
Good birdie there for Gareth. And now we'll see Tom pick up his birdie and Markus with his putt for birdie.
That was just like.
Like I say, for these guys, it should be a pretty routine hole.
that's a good bag to 500 M1.
Unfortunately, that's not how it's played out for Tim, but the rest of the card picking up their birdies.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that bogey on the last hole, Tim ends up the round at 1 under, Markus at 3 under, and Gareth and Tom also at 1 under. These guys maintaining their lead over the field as Tim finishes up on 6 under, Markus 5, and Gareth and Tom at 4 down. So we'll be seeing these guys again tomorrow to see how things shake out for the 2023 Vic Open.
See you tomorrow.